it goes and searches actual data inside your database and retrieves that information and then gives it to you in a very presentable format. The most used emission factors and some details about it. And now you can go and search more and dig deeper if you're really looking for like a particular emission factor. It's a very seamless process and we don't have to ask our clients to go and repeat steps or just give them a good experience of like carbon accounting, right?
I'm here with Bala.
I'm here with Afonso.
We're covering our latest product sprint.
That's right.
So we're going to go over a couple of features, what's new in Netnara. Bala is from our development team, and I'm going to try to bring a bit of the business context of why we're doing what we're doing. So one of the first things that we did in January was to develop this knowledge base for within Netnara. Knowledge base means a lot of things, but a lot of our customers are now used to interact in chatbots to get the information that they need. And we developed this feature that allows them to not only have context about things that are required to do sustainability work, how does the greenhouse gas protocol works, what are emission factors, how to set boundaries, how to use Netnara, but also that clients can add their own knowledge to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is pretty much part of our year-long process of updating and improving Nettie AI agent, I would say. It's less of a chatbot because of features like this that we have added to it. So exactly like you said, we have already fed Nettie with a lot of context about sustainability, carbon accounting, and how Netnara as a platform works itself. But then as a client, you obviously bring in more unique content, which would obviously help the agent tailor its responses and make your workflow really, really easy for you in this whole using our product, right? So this particular feature allows each client to then upload data either for themselves or for their organization so that their teammates, so they have full flexibility basically to decide how much content they put into Nettie so that Nettie can help them.
One thing that I like about when you add content in this scenario is that the problem I think we had a lot in the past was that sustainability was being kind of cross-transferred into every organization in the same way. And right. The fact that Nettie understands not only sustainability and carbon accounting and carbon reporting, but your own data, because I know you've built connectors directly into the database, so you can search things like emission factors that have been used, calculations, tasks that are open.
Exactly. It's more than just a chatbot. And the last thing we wanted to do is to take you away from another chatbot and put you into another chatbot. So the real difference comes now with the fact that you don't have to prompt too much to get real data and real value out of our agent compared to, let's say, any other workflows that you might be following now. So this is so that's basically the number one benefit.
Because I feel that there's an element of people are used, like you said, to use their previous large language modules like ChatGPT, but the step going from that to actually connecting to their tooling, to their data is a big jump. I feel that as developers, what you've managed to do is a very seamless experience that if you are in the context of sustainability, every data that you need is already ready to go inside Netnara.
Absolutely. Yeah. Already we've benefited a lot from AI and we're just keep going and making sure we are really, really progressing.
Any risks or any things that you wanted to make sure it was right that, when you and the team were developing this to make sure that it was safe, it was accurate? What was the kind of that process that you guys went through to make it happen?
I mean, I think every single decision we took, from the UI aspects of where we show Nettie, how much of the information Nettie can see, to all the way from the data that we upload and prompts that we use. Security was a really big decision that we had to always take and make sure that we're just not sacrificing on any of those, especially because this is an evolving technology. We took a stance to make sure that we have a very defensive approach and we make sure that our client data is safe. That is the non-negotiable part. And then we built everything on top of that.
I think Carlos did something really nice as well, is as we were iterating through this one instance of the product, is make sure that we always have hyperlinks and references So we kind of build that idea that it's always linked back to your data in a sense, and
That's
also the aspect of there's different people that should see different data. So when you're uploading, we have the function of having a white label version of NetNara that you can constrain where your data lives and who can access it.
Exactly. And looking at security from like a risk point of view, exactly like you said, Nettie giving misinformation or getting information outside your client's space is also a risk, and it's something that we had to keep in mind and make sure that we have very strong guardrails that make sure that Nettie is like fully confident in what it says and it's taking it from your data. So that was a priority.
Perfect. Can you kind of show me one prompt as an example and seeing how NetNara can access user data, context, and see a live demo of how it could be working?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys can see that this is our product right now, and we have a dedicated Nettie tab, which is always going to be present no matter where you are. So if we go on here and really simply ask about like what are my total emissions this year, for an example, what Nettie does now is it goes and searches actual data inside your database and retrieves that information and then gives it to you in a very presentable format. And so yeah, exactly like this. But the advantage here is now if you want to have more context about your information, for example, like if you just want to know more about the data itself, you can prompt it and it remembers the conversation and answers again tailored to what exactly you want to know with the right context of what data we're talking about. And basically you don't have to go and tell every single time like, yeah, my purchase electricity was XYZ and like tell me now why.
What I like how we've seen people use this as well is when they go from searching the data or they go from asking knowledge questions to maybe give me definitions for scope 1, 2, and 3 to then asking what are my emissions to then maybe trying to create a plan after that. So they go from learning data discovery to then what do I have left to do in NetNara, right? And they go from I think in the past people stayed very in the discovery chatting phase, and now they go to like an action mode of, okay, if I'm here, what do I have left to do to complete my emissions?
And Nettie is trying to reduce that friction as much as possible.
Yeah. That's awesome. Can you just ask a follow-up question? For example, provide me a list of emission factors that have been used.
Sure.
Let's see what happens.
That we have used. Yeah, these links, again, Nettie has been designed in a way to decide on its own to understand when it's required, when it's not, what's relevant, and then give you those information as well. Again, here you can see that this is a very complex question to list the emission factors, because normally clients would use a lot of emission factors, like a lot of like bills and like whatnot. It's like pretty standard, but here it is decided to go search for all the factors that we've used in the database, and it understood that instead of simply listing everything which does not add any like user value, it has gone and given us like the most used emission factors and some details about it. And now you can go and search more and dig deeper if you're really looking for like a particular emission factor.
Let's go and talk about, NetNara has several components or modules. We have the emissions modules, we have the supply chain module, we have the audit module, and we also have a lot of now the climate reporting module in terms of like creating those reports. So you personally, in this time around, you worked a lot in revamping the requirements for climate reporting in Australia and the document management of that. You've touched on things like controls, adding comments, history. Do you want to walk me a bit through that process of what it looks like, how you worked on that, and how users can interact with that aspect of the app?
So the requirements and documents revamp, as you just mentioned, was mainly done this year to keep auditors and the end goal of why we are doing all of this in mind. So like you mentioned, like every decision we had to take regarding how a user like uses like this page was decided based on how one day an auditor is going to come and look at this, and we need to make sure that it's a very seamless process and we don't have to ask our clients to go and repeat steps or just give them a good experience of like carbon accounting, right? So this, you're looking at the requirements page right now, which is coming from a framework that we have chosen to report on basically. And this one over here, you can see that we have done absolutely no progress, but so you can see the amount of progress you have done and the amount of like the requirements that you have to meet. So if we go into a requirement, for example, progress on climate action plans that your company wants to do, now you can see what evidences that you have to upload and some information on like some instructions on what it means, where we are taking that information from, what exactly is the framework saying. So all the boring jargons are now summarized into why exactly you're doing this. So you can quickly get onto that task. Obviously use Nettie for this and, get on with like, you can ask questions like, oh, how can I give evidence for my climate transition plan? And like, what kind of data should I use in this plan? And do we have this data sitting in our account somewhere? And Nettie can obviously give you all that information. You quickly make this plan and then submit.
What I really like about this is the fact that for sustainability managers, what we've done here is there's the legislation, which is the source of truth. So they know that they have that backbone, but then how do you make it into components that are like digestible and that help you take the action, right? And I feel that in the past, people were very descriptive in terms of, okay, here's a list of everything.
Yeah.
And we go from inside the organization, what you actually need. Okay, you need to understand the requirements, but now you need to understand like examples and you need to also build the systems. And I felt there's the second part I want you to cover, which is how do you go from just describing what you need to be doing into how can it become a system inside your organization, like reviewer, dates, and those components as well.
Exactly. So that's going to be the second phase over here. So once you've uploaded these evidences, obviously you're going to have these things checklisted, and you have, first of all, I know we mentioned that there's 166 requirements. So as a team, if you're doing this, you have an option to assign a user, for example, this particular task, and they will, and then like kind of like organize the way you split the work. And you can set validity periods and completion dates. Like completion date is something that it automatically picks up once you've uploaded the files, and it's like, and it's done. For audit purposes, like you said, we have this comment section over here, so that, and this is mainly here because the framework is huge and all the documents might not make perfect sense right away, and you don't know what the auditor is looking for. So oftentimes you might have to upload documents which you might not be fully confident about, but this is the section where you can then have this async chat with the auditors and say, hey, I've uploaded this document, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And that gives the auditors additional context, which makes their life easy, which makes it.
I feel there's also an element of not only for the auditor, but even within the teams, if they're doing like version by version, like how do you collaborate? And also the fact, and it feels very similar to how when you build like an ISO is, you need to have owners, and a lot of like the climate disclosures that people have to do is governance, who controls what.
Yeah.
And I think the shift of why a product like this is needed, before if you do it one-off, it was static in time, and now you have to demonstrate that there is oversight and control for the thing that you're doing. And the moment you have a system, well, it's really much easier to show the evidence instead of just, hey, here's something that no one controls.
Exactly. And we're talking about controls and evidence and security, which always keeps coming back to how we develop things at NetNada. We have a status history page where every interaction, for example, like who uploaded what file at what time, gets stored here so that you have a clean audit trail as well. I know, which is something really important when you're doing like the whole accounting stuff. Yeah. So that was basically the revamp we did for the requirements page in 2026.
Perfect.